Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. Welcome back to yet another edition of the SOS and Shout Out Show with me, your host, Preacher Moss. I want to thank everybody for coming in and tuning in. Whether it's your first time or it's been your newest time, you've been with us all of the episodes, it does not matter. I wanted to let you know straight up front. Thank you. I appreciate you and I'm grateful for your support. And I hope that I never, ever, ever lose your trust in bringing this vehicle to you. Today's episode, as you know, you can look down the bottom of the screen, is corner store racism in the Muslim community. People say, Preacher Moss, what do you mean corner store racism in the Muslim community? Well, let me give us a little bit of a primer. Maybe I should have had you do your homework before you came to class today. I would ask everybody, when you have some opportunity and some time, and you get a little space where you can just decompress, maybe get yourself a soft drink or a piece of pizza, there's a movie that I want you to watch. The movie is Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. Again, that's Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. I keep looking for pieces of information that could tie our current situation to what was in the past, and I came up with Do the Right Thing. And I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, it was a revelation. It brought back some things to me that in some regards allowed me to be, have a halal split personality. At one point, yes, I was Muslim. At the other point, I was that African-American kid in the neighborhood going through these things. And I think of the corner store racism that was in my grandmother's neighborhood on 7th and Kennedy. Something that was akin to, we would spend money in that space, but we didn't feel respected. Let me say that again. We would spend money in that space, and we wouldn't feel respected. We would be tolerated because we put our money in. And let me shout out some people. Two sisters, Sister Layla Muhammad, thank you for coming, and Sister Reed, thank you for coming. Appreciate you. I watched the movie Do the Right Thing, and I specifically watched the first 50 minutes because it sets up everything else that happens in the movie. And I will relate this to the Muslim community. There's a scene with Robin Harris, Frankie Faison, and I forget the other brother. He played in the movie Rosewood, where the brother who played in the movie Rosewood is very, very agitated in this hot, sweltering day in New York City, Brooklyn neighborhood, as far as I'm concerned. And he's looking at a corner market. And what's significant is in this neighborhood, in this corner market, the corner market is owned by Koreans. And he makes the point that it's a shame. It's a GD shame that these people, that he says, and let's be honest, this is an honest conversation we're about to have right here. He's very resentful that the Korean shop owner has been able to come in, purchase that shop, and do business unabated, whereby the building was boarded up for black folks. And for a number of reasons, they weren't able to use that situation. They weren't able to, I want to say, leverage that situation of the building being in the neighborhood. And he has open resentment. And the buddy beside him, Robin Harris, says, bump all that. I'm going to go over here and give these Koreans some more of my money. That's two very, very distinct mindsets. Now, there's nothing about the Korean doing his business there. I have no problem with that. There's also an issue that, as a brother hit me to, he said, not that, we don't own assets, but we fail to value our assets in that particular situation. It's probably a whole nother conversation, a whole nother show. But there's a picture or a clip of Ossie Davis, the late, great Ossie Davis, who played in this movie along with his late, great wife, Ruby Dee. He plays a character called the mayor, and the mayor might be possibly alcoholic, but the mayor goes and he wants a beer. His whole thing is about a beer. Now, this is the first setup. He wants a beer, but he gets his beer after sweeping up at Sal's Pizza Shop. I will connect the two if you allow me a little latitude. He goes in to buy the beer at the Korean shop, and the Korean club owner, the Korean shop owner, and he have an argument because he doesn't have the beer that he wants. And he says, you need to have this beer. And the shop owner clearly says, You drink what beer is in there. So you drink whatever beer is in there. And I found that really disturbing. And I'm like, that is because at this point, Ozzie Davis is advanced in age. It's clear in his character he's playing someone who has a alcohol issue, but he's clear in age and he's respecting that man. You drink one, and I said, this is part of the pandemic, if you will. And that pandemic is not just this unresolved aspect of race, and for the African American, unresolved aspect of not having opportunities or having opportunity. It's one thing to not have an opportunity, but it's another thing to have an opportunity that's denied, which means that you see someone else get it and then you don't get it. You see someone else get a loan and you don't get a loan. You see someone else leverage a law to their benefit and you're not able to leverage that law. And I think that's a very, very important thing, because for those who have seen the film ends in a riot when Radio Raheem, who is symbolic, he keeps going around playing on this huge sound box. They used to call it a boom box. This huge boom box. He keeps going through the neighborhood playing the Public Enemy epic song, "Fight the Power, Fight the Power, Fight the Power." And it's almost like he reminds everybody, fight the power. And of course, in his Brooklyn neighborhood, there's a police presence. Let's not forget that. But it's fight the power, fight the power, fight the power. And the whole that breaks out a riot, there's a riot that breaks out, in which, ironically, Radio Raheem is killed. But how is he killed? He's choked out. He's killed in a chokehold. The story or the myth or the legend of the corner store in African American neighborhoods begins and ends with the fact that at one time we did own them, but for a bunch of years after that, we did not own. We were friend and lead consumer for the Jewish shop owner. We were friend and lead consumer for the Asian shop owner. Lead and main consumer for the Arab shop owner. Ironically, the Arab shop owner, I have to say that because when we would go into those stores, now I'm separating the pre-Islam and the post-Islam preacher malls. When we go in the stores, the Arab shop owners did not show me the Muslim side of the game. They did not show me the Muslim side of the game. Meaning I would see on plaques quotations for Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but you would have to move the liquor bottles and the cigarettes to take a look at it. I would have to speak through plate thick glass and put my money through a trough, if you will, and they would swing my money around along my change and my items, and I would have to take it out. I would contend, brothers and sisters, that this is not ending. We have that in the Muslim community, that corner store racism. When I say corner store racism, just the act that you would sell me a beer is racism. It's not transactional. It's problematic, meaning that you're not supposed to do it, but given the opportunity, you'll do it. I used to joke, and I used to get a lot of slack for this joke. I'm going to tell it anyway because it's my show. I don't care. People say, "Where did you meet the first Muslims?" I said, "I met them in my neighborhood." They're like, "Really? Where'd you meet them?" I said, "I met my first Muslim. Like I met all the rest of us met our first Muslim at the liquor store." And I remember going into a liquor store as a non-Muslim, and I could get beer, I could get rolling papers, I can get bad meat, I can get pig's feet, I can get all these, I get Vienna sausage, I get all this stuff that's outlawed. I mean, the name of the store should have been called Haram or Us, but it was available to African American people and Latinos in those communities. And why am I saying this? Because, all racism, not just, I called you the N-word. It has to do about how I treat your condition. So I call out this racism, and it's different than just the racism I may feel or ill feelings I may feel as an African American Muslim. It's much deeper. I felt worse that a person would acknowledge me as a Muslim, but still to my brothers and sisters who were not Muslim, this was still business as usual. If you watch Do the Right Thing, there's a lot of layers to the film. It's hard to discuss it in this little bit of time that we have, but it's important. That corner store was owned by a guy. It was Sal's Pizzeria, and it had a character called Bugging Out. And Bugging Out might have been bugging out most of the time, but he says some very poignant things. He first has a hard time with Sal about the pizza and extra cheese. And Sal says the pizza's $1.50. He says, where's the cheese? He goes, extra cheese is $2. That's more than the pizza, if you ever pick that up. If you ever picked it up. And let me throw this out too. Yes, respect needs to be. I couldn't have said that better. Okay, I couldn't have said it better. Stores still operate the same way. Yes, yes, yes. Very important. I thought the scope of Sal's Pizzeria, it reminds me a lot of what I see in the Muslim community. And it's not just for Black Muslims. I am abhorred sometimes how African Americans, Latinos, and the poor are treated in some of these stores. Because it's not much difference or not much more nuance than how you're treated in the masjid. The fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, brothers and sisters. Just because you clean it up. You know, there was a great story. I wish I had all the facts, but there's a myth. I don't say it's mythological. I know it happened in Oakland, in the Bay Area. They had a brother who had a store, and some brothers from the NOI, allegedly, told him that he couldn't sell liquor in that store anymore. He couldn't sell liquor to the community. They were very specific. So you can't sell liquor to our Black brothers and sisters. And the story goes, he says, well, I'm from wherever I'm from. He goes, so I can't sell over there, but America allows me to sell it here. I'm going to sell it. And I think they told the brother, no, you're not. And he said, yes, we are. And he said, no, you're not. And so when they came back the next time, they took all the liquor, smashed it, and I think they put them in a trunk and drove them around for a little bit. You know, it's myth. It's myth. But my point is, Sal's Pizzeria at the beginning of the movie Sal has two sons. The one son says, I detest working here. I detest working here. Listen to the words. I detest working. This establishment in a predominantly Black Latino neighborhood, he detests working there, but he doesn't mind getting the money. When you watch it, it's science. I don't give Spike Lee enough credit on some of his films. Some of it is just a film thing conceptually, but he nails this. I don't even know how much he nails this. When Bugging Out is eating a pizza, he looks on the wall and there are no Black people on the wall. And he goes, hey, Sal, all the people are Italian. And he goes, hey, Sal, how come you don't have any brothers on the wall? And he goes, when you get your own place, you can put whatever you want on the wall. It's very condescending to him. And he goes, you have all these Italian on the walls, but ain't nobody in here eating except basically Black folk. And at that point in time, Sal is offended, but he's offended by the truth. He's offended by the truth because something is raised up in Sal. Because he goes, I know exactly what he's talking about, but I can't acknowledge it. Because if I acknowledge it, God forbid I'm going to have to change. In the Muslim community, a lot of what you see in terms of racism, intolerance, is the same corner store racism. I've coined this phrase, and I say it has to be that way. Because when a lot of people come to America, what are they taught? You get a store, you get a business, and you say, well, if you can't get the business with the Arab community, the Blacks are already there. They're already set up. We have a history of being exploited from Jewish relationships to Korean relationships to Arab relationships. You know, I think the Arab. I used to actually deliver papers for the Milwaukee Journal when I was in college. I wasn't Muslim then, but I remember having to go past, Al Fayed grocery store in the worst parts of Milwaukee, and I would have to actually um, go in and talk to these people. And I remember Mr. Fayed, and I remember, when I was a Muslim, and he would hook me up if I wanted a beer, And I remember after I was Muslim, I moved back and I went to see him. He didn't know I was Muslim. I said, Mr. Fayed, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. He said, cool. He's like, you want a beer? And I was like, no, Mr. Fayed, I don't want a beer. He said, it's a sale. I said, no, I don't want it. I don't want it because it's a sale. He goes, come on, get a beer. I said, Mr. Fayed, I'm Muslim. He goes, well, normally it's $2, but for you it's $1. What? I'm getting a discount now. I'm like an alcoholic Muslim discount. I'm like, no, man. I'm fully engaged in this thing, and I'm talking to some folks. Thank you, Miss Sarah. Thank you for coming. I'm talking to some folks because I don't think we totally understand the space we're in right now. There's some things where we bear responsibility. There was a situation in Plano, Texas, East Plano, Islamic Center, EPIC, where the constituency, the hierarchy of this masjid decided that they were going to host a forum based on police brutality, and they hadn't talked to anybody in terms of Black activists, Black community members, Black Lives Matters, but they're going to invite the police chief, and another sister comes on who she hadn't talked. Nobody had talked to anybody Black that mattered in that area. And it was interesting because it became a big brouhaha. And they essentially, if you looked at the comments, people were like, cancel this. They literally said, this is not Black people. This is my Pakistani, Indian, Arab brothers and sisters going, this is disrespectful to African Americans. This is hurtful. This is counterproductive. Don't do it. Cancel the event. I'm talking about over 150 comments. Don't do it. This is disingenuous. How are you going to talk to the police? You're not going to talk. And there was a Black police chief. They were like, don't do it. Reschedule it. They had it anyway. The interesting thing was Epic, I feel, went out and found a Black person to put on screen. One of the imams from a well-regarded imam from Dallas, they put him on screen, and he echoed the thing that police aren't the problem, white supremacy is the problem, and it was a mess. It was a mess. It's been on, Black American Muslim chat and all of that, but they marched him out. And what I felt was, it was the same as the mayor in a Korean shop. And they told him, though we don't have the beer you drink what we give you. And they marched that brother out. And they let him go out and take the heat and the bullets without actually dealing with the situation themselves. I made a joke about it. Some people got upset about it, but this is what I do. It's not even a joke, it's a reality. Sometimes I'm just seeing it in real time. And when I put it out, some people get offended. That's life. People get offended anyway. But that same mentality is what holds us back today. If I hear one more person tell me about when you see injustice, change it with your hand, change it with your voice, change it in your heart, it still says it needs to be changed. And I'm not talking about different levels of activism. I'm talking about right is right and wrong is wrong. I've been accused sometimes of being direct. Guy said I have a drinking problem, and I said, well, put the bottle down, maybe you won't have as much as a drinking problem. I find that we have gotten away from that, the directness and a sense of urgency. I come from a community, I never joined the Nation of Islam. I tell everybody that, but I grew up on a sense of urgency. So when the first went to the second, nothing was lost with me because I had already been studying about Malcolm before 1975. So I had an understanding of self that I was willing to share and evolve. The corner store racism is rampant in our community. We have too many people that have set up shop, and basically they lean on the fact that they can alter or deny opportunities to people. In our own communities, we have people who are doing abhorrent things, but cornerstone racism allows them to stay in place. We have people that do the worst things, spiritual bullying, pedophiles, all that type of stuff, and they lean on the fact that that corner store is always going to be open when times get rough. I'm not saying close the corner store. I'm saying burn the corner store racism down. We owe it to ourselves as believers. We owe it to ourselves as human beings. And for once, I want people to have the courage to say, you can't do that. There's other corner store racism. Some of them call it the police precinct. Yeah, some of us call it the White House. Some of us call it Supreme Court. But you got to pick your battles. And that corner store right there, that's our masjid. And that masjid is more important than philosophical differences. What madhab you follow? Do you have a beard? The height of your pants? Just all superficial. So all those things are almost like the things inside the store, the corner store. We're making things up to avoid getting to the real issues, if you will. Now, I don't want to beat up anybody because sometimes, hey, listen, part of racism, people don't like to hear about it when it's called about black racism. A lot of times it's still here because people are complicit with it. Everybody knows about the house Negro and the field Negro. We all know that. Everybody knows, hey, the house Negro tell the field Negro don't run away because if the field Negro runs away, the house Negro gonna have to be in the field doing that work. I mean, we have these complications. These are not new. These are historical ramifications. We deal with them all the time. My point is, knowing, having a sense of balance and knowledge about the things that I'm talking about, they resonate. I talked about what happened at, or I want to say the climatic point of Do the Right Thing is when Radio Raheem gets choked out by the police for playing his music too loud. But the music, it's not that it's loud. It's not that it's a sound. It's a noise that's disrupting all the things that people are talking about and doing. They would literally stop because it was a reminder. It was a reminder, a very subtle, nuanced, beautiful reminder that we always have to fight. We say fight the power, I agree, but I also say fight that corner store racism. So when we go in a store, it doesn't have to be the Arab person, it doesn't have to be the Korean. The Jewish people aren't in there anymore. But you do have a duty to fight that power. So maybe, we've already talked about this stuff. You've heard it before. We need to own our own stuff. We need to do for self. Well, damn it, do it. Shock the world. You know what? Take out a first mortgage, a second mortgage, and you buy the store. Now, there's a whole lot of risk because sometimes our people are preconditioned, and we've been, in some ways, well colonized that we don't want to buy from black people because something's inherently wrong. That sounds inherently racist. Or we're willing to pay the white man more because the white man gave it to you? No, that's kind of crazy. But we owe it to ourselves. For every Radio Raheem that's been out there, and there's been a bunch of Radio Raheems. They were named Malcolm X. They were named Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They were named Warith Muhammad. They were named Muhammad Ali. They were named Fannie Lou Hamer. They were named Maya Angelou. They were named Sharpton. They were named Martin Luther King. They were named Nelson Mandela. For every Radio Raheem, we owe it to ourselves to close the corner store of racism and open a corner store that we can be proud of, that celebrates our culture, that respects our culture, and treats us civilly. Brothers and sisters, I'm not Spike Lee, but doggone it, I don't know what Arabic is, but do the right thing.